Hello there, this is your friendly neighbor Brian,
And this is Zach.
and we are the Cinema Addicts here.
This week we're doing something a little bit different. We have decided to break the podcast up into two because we just have so much to talk about with the Showdown.
Oh.
So this right here is the Showdown podcast, brought to you by the Cinema Addicts. This week we're actually going to promote a couple other fellow podcasters. First up we have the friendly people from Popsination Network. They have 3 different podcasts, and they all have one thing in common: a fascination for pop culture. The first one they have up is called The Movie Queue. This is where they debate and review different movies. Kind of sort of what we do, so that's why we're friends with them. Also, they have their podcast, Rated B. This is a horror-related show. I guess because these are B movies. Get it? I surely do. Also, we have the Weekly Geekly, and this is a discussion of nerd culture. Definitely go check them out. I've been listening to them in the past couple of weeks, and they're pretty entertaining. Like I said, go check them out. Next up, we have a hockey podcast. It's called Your Team Sucks, a hockey podcast. This guy that runs this podcast is actually guest starring on our podcast today. He's going to be included into the Showdown, and also we're doing the movie pitch at the end of the episode for the Showdown. He has came up with this little pitch for his movie. You can find him at Twitter at YTS Show, or check him out at www.ytsshow.com. Enjoy!
Hello everybody, here we are with this Showdown this week. We have a great Showdown. This is one of the many showdowns we've came up with. Me and Zach, we have all 100. And this one here...
More than that.
Yeah, it's front to back, it's sheets of paper. But this is one that I always couldn't wait to do. This is a lot to talk about. 2 great classics. We got The Godfather versus Scarface. Zach, give us a little detail about these movies.
Alright, so I'm going to start off with The Godfather. This one was made in the 70s. The plot of this one is the aging patriarch of an organized crime family dynasty transfers control of his clandestine empire to his reluctant son. Very compelling. This movie is directed by Francis Ford Coppola and stars Marlon Brando, Al Pacino, James Caan, and Robert Duvall. And this movie has actually won 3 Oscars, one being for Marlon Brando's portrayal of The Godfather. Next up, we have Scarface. This is another movie that stars Al Pacino, Stephen Bauer, and Michelle Pfeiffer in it. It has 0 nominations, unfortunately, but it's still a very good movie. The plot of this one is, in 1980s Miami, a determined Cuban immigrant takes over a drug cartel while succumbing to greed. And he succumbs to greed, very much so. Each movie is almost 3 hours long. They're both at the 2 hour and 50-minute mark. If you have a lot of time, I'd watch them both.
But if you're a great mob fan, these are 2 movies that definitely you cannot waste your time in watching. If you have not watched them, or if you haven't watched them in a long time, watch them again, immediately.
And also, we do understand that Scarface is not a mafia movie, it's a gangster movie, but we feel that these 2 are very comparable because it's dealing with organized crime. He may be a drug leader, but he still has an organized crime about him.
He's a very powerful man. He becomes a very powerful man.
And he is a little friend.
Well, I'll go ahead with my Showdown results here. Both movies for me are very close. I really cannot go wrong with either one. I think both storylines are very strong. I do agree that Scarface is more of an epic adventure, more extreme on the violence and stuff, with Godfather's more of a more serious drama take of the mafia families and rise in through family of power and Godfather. So both movies, it's really tough for me. I had to rewatch Godfather because honestly, I could not remember the last time I watched Godfather.
Since it's really tough for you, let's break it down. We'll get down to the nitty-gritty and see which movies is the best. So let's start off with the story. Let's compare the stories.
Story-wise, Godfather's got the winner. Godfather has a better storyline, not by a long shot for me, but I will give Godfather has a little bit more stronger storyline than Scarface. Acting-wise, it's almost about even for me on that one. I'll have to nudge it just a slightly more to the Godfather with the acting, but Scarface is really right there with it. Let's see, what else is there?
I'm going to go back to story real quick because there's a couple things I want to mention. I have a big, long list of things to mention. So in The Godfather, one of the things that hurts it is that it is very slow at times.
Yeah, the worst part for me is when they send him over into the other country to get away for a while. That whole part there, at 30 minutes of him getting married to that girl and then she gets blown up in a car, that's where kind of Godfather loses me for a while. I feel like if they would cut that part out or make it different, like he gets over in that country and maybe the men come after the mafia people come over after him and other things go wrong with it. I felt that part where there was the part that really dragged for me. That's really the only part of Godfather that really was killing me.
Some good things about it is I feel that the plot is very original. A lot of movies have copied off of this movie. It is based on a book, which also helps it out a lot because it seems like movies that are based off books seem to be a lot better, has a lot better quality because they already have the rough draft, which is the book, and they can build upon that. Also, I think this movie has great development for the son, which is played by Al Pacino. He goes from being a respectable war hero to controlling his family's business that he didn't want in the beginning.
Which you did not see coming. When you first watch Godfather and then it comes on, you did not expect at the end that he was going to take over his father's spot. So that was really shocking to me.
I personally think that if his brother did not get killed, he probably would not have been the leader of the family.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
But this movie shows you if you're addicted to other people, you're going to get killed.
It just shows that if you're too reckless and too extreme and you just want to kill people to get the power and everything like that, it just don't work that way. You need someone more stable who's crazy, stable, and just knows how to put the fear of God in people's eyes to get that power.
Yeah, because if you cross them, I'm going to give you an offer I can't refuse. I totally butchered that. I usually do it better, but, whatever. One big thing about this movie or this trilogy is respect.
Yeah.
Respect is a big thing with the Italian families. And with all the respect, that leads to a lot of the people being afraid of the leader. One of the cases is in the beginning, we have this guy. He keeps repeating what he's going to say to Don Corleone. And when he actually meets up with him, he butchers what he's going to say. It's the whole speech was, "May you have a son that is masculine." So, overall, with the story, I take about like a quarter point off for it, just for the fact that it is slow at times. If it was a little bit more faster paced, this would be 0 off.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so let's talk about the story a little bit with Scarface. I also felt this was a little bit slow at times. These are 3-hour-long movies, so it is going to be periods of slowness.
Yeah. I will say that with Scarface, the ending, to me, I feel like the first time you watch Scarface, at the end is shocking as well. When they come there to attack, and they first shoot up his sister and stuff, and she gets killed, I kind of at first thought that Tony Montana was about to just whoop ass, and he wasn't going to get killed.
You want to play rough? Say hello to my little friend.
So to see what happens to him at the end of getting blown away. What was that? A sawed-off shotgun he had, a 12 gauge?
No, it was an M16 with a grenade launcher.
So he blows a big hole in his back and stomach, and I thought the ending was shocking to me more than it was shocking with The Godfather. Godfather was more predictable. When you get more to the end, you kind of figured, you seen that his son there, the war hero, was going to take his spot. He was cleaning house. Everyone was getting whacked at the end of Godfather. So I thought the ending was more shocking in Scarface, the whole movie is just, there's just a lot of extreme things in it at the same time.
I also want to mention one thing that I totally hate about Scarface. This is the weird freaking relationship that Tony Montana has with his sister. Basically, you're getting this feeling that he wants to make love, have sex, keep his sister to himself. This right here puts a wedge between him and his best friend because his best friend falls in love with his sister, and it drives him crazy.
I remember as a kid watching Scarface and always wondering that, like, I'm getting a little sick seeing Tony Montana just all over his sister. He seems like he's real jealous of her, and he doesn't want no men going around her. I mean,
there's this one scene where his sister just shows up at his door, like, naked, and she's like, "Do you want me, Tony?"
Yeah, it was at the end of it. Yeah, and that's when it really got weird, was at the ending when she came through those doors wearing that see-through gown and she was naked. She looked like she was ready to just molest Tony Montana and stuff. So, yeah, there was scenes in that movie where it got a little sick, little incest going on.
Hey, we're not from Cuba, so I don't know if that's what you guys do down there, but that's not what we do here.
Maybe it's normal. I don't know. Maybe it's normal there.
I also want to mention a couple of things I do like about this movie. I felt this movie demonstrates really well the rise and fall of a criminal. It shows the power that Tony gets at the beginning slowly, and it all gets to his head. And it also kind of shows you that you don't take part in the product you are selling.
Right.
He's selling cocaine, and he's just going to town on that stuff.
I think it went to his head too.
Well, I mean, you're sniffing it up, so yeah, it's going to your head.
Yeah. Also, I liked about Scarface was some of the brutal killings in it. The part where they go to that hotel and they're trying to make that deal and it goes bad, and Tony Montana, him and his other buddy that went with them gets captured up in the bathroom, and they handcuff him to the shower, and they take out the chainsaw and they cut him up, his buddy, right in front of him. I thought that scene there was just as memorable as in Godfather, where they find the horse's head under the blankets in the bed of that big shot movie director. I think both of those scenes from both movies, a lot of people out there just remember like it ain't nothing. It's just really chaotic, gruesome scenes.
And that is one really great thing about The Godfather. That horse head looked real.
It did, though.
I mean, for being back in the early 1970s, that is some good effects that they had.
I almost question if it was real. I mean, it looked real as it can be to me.
Hey, you never know.
You never know.
But we'll get to the effects. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on.
Okay.
So let's move on to the main actor. The main actor is being... in The Godfather, Marlon Brando, and then Scarface, Al Pacino. Yeah, you might argue that Al Pacino is the main actor for The Godfather, but according to the Academy Awards, Marlon Brando is the lead actor.
Yeah, you just felt a real powerful connection with him. I mean, his acting was just brilliant. I mean, to find acting like that is sometimes really hard to find in great cinema movies. So I can agree with him a lot. I mean, his performance in the movie is just awesome. It's beautiful.
And also, when you think about Marlon Brando, you think of The Godfather. You don't think of any of his other movies. Mm-hmm. You don't think of Superman or I'm trying to think of his other movies that he's in. He's in this one Western with Jack Nicholson, but
Yeah, you remember him as Godfather. That is
Yeah.
his masterpiece right there. That's his Mona Lisa. I mean, that movie's just awesome for him.
And, you just, I want to make you an offer that you can't refuse.
Usually Zach does better than that.
Yeah, I'm leaning into the mic. It's just not getting the good body mechanics here. All right, I'm going to see if I can do better. Let's try this. Okay. I want to make you an offer that you can't refuse. You come today on the day of my daughter's wedding.
It sounds better there. That sounds more
All right,
better.
Brian, let's see what yours is.
All you have to do is listen to the movie pitch and see how mine sounds. Mine sounds really horrible.
What are you trying to say?
It sounds like crap.
It sounds like crap.
Okay, so my scoring here, I actually did our rating system. That means Zach invented here on how we score these movies through 1 to 10.
So what do you get for main actor? What percentage off do you take?
Well, for Godfather, I take probably 0. And
That's exactly what I took, because this is an iconic role, and
is.
with a role being iconic, you can't take any points away.
yeah. And same with Scarface. I feel with Scarface, if I take off anything, it's just a quarter, 0.25. But there's just times in it that I still feel in Scarface that the acting is just really great. I mean, if you watch that movie over, especially with a lot of the killings in it, I mean, when things go bad, there's some really great acting in Scarface too. So Scarface is really hard for me to judge on the acting part.
With Scarface, I took 0 points off because this is the role that he is known for. He's not really known for The Godfather. Actually, last week, Brian had just rewatched The Godfather, and he said to me, "Hey, you know what's really funny? The guy that plays Michael in The Godfather looks so much like the guy that plays in Scarface." I was like, you know why that is, right? And he's like, no, why? And I was like, it's the same person.
No, I questioned it. This is where I actually had another blind moment here. Because I actually didn't look at the cast or anything of Godfather. I just rewatched it. And like I said, last time I watched Godfather was back when I was a kid. So, and then we checked the dates. Between Godfather and Scarface, it's almost about a decade difference. So, if you rewatch Godfather and watch Scarface, he looks really, really different in it. You see a lot of similarities in it, but you can tell he's a lot younger, and he's actually got more weight on him than he does in Scarface. Scarface, he's actually skinnier, and you could tell he's aged a little bit more over that decade. So it kind of threw me off and made me question it without checking the cast of it. And so when I asked Zach about it, it was pretty funny. I'm like, he looks like he could be a twin of this guy. Like, it is him.
I'm going to have you watch a couple old Robert De Niro movies and see if that seems like a different person or not.
No, I'm pretty sure I'll guess it's Robert De Niro.
I'm just saying. I also want to just throw out a couple things with Marlon Brando during the filming of The Godfather. I was doing some research, and I found a couple funny things that he did. There was this one scene where he comes home from the hospital, and they're bringing him upstairs in a hospital bed, or it's just a bed in general. Well, I guess Marlon Brando decided, like, hey, I'm going to play a prank on my co-stars. So he put a bunch of freaking weights in that bed with him and laid on top of him so no one would see him to make himself heavy as hell. And also want to say that he also improvises a couple scenes. There's this one scene where he just straight up slaps one of his co-stars, and this guy looks confused. And they actually used this for the movie, so I thought that was pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
And with Tony Montana, I think he does a great job at making you believe that he's Cuban. This guy is Italian. He's not Cuban. He's not Spanish. He's nothing at all. He does a great job playing a Cuban. Mm-hmm. But then again, I don't know too many Cubans, so I can't really reference that. Only thing I can really do is the George Lopez show with his father-in-law.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I also agree. I think he puts on a great acting of playing Cuban. So, I mean, he's got great acting skills. So I'm more leaning on that. I can't take off even that 0.25 on the main acting. Now the co-stars, I definitely probably could take off a pinch on Scarface compared to Godfathers, because Godfather, even their co-stars, his brothers and such on the movie, all of them do great acting on it. I mean, all perfect. And then Scarface, his buddy in it, his little right-hand man that he eventually kills because of his sister. His acting was good and all. It's just, I don't know. If you really wanted to nick and pick, you probably could take off for co-stars in the movies. On Scarface, you could probably take off maybe a quarter off for Scarface, but that would be really nitpicking for me.
All right, so let's talk about the supporting actors from The Godfather.
Well, like I said, I think they all did great acting in it.
So what did you think about Al Pacino's part?
I think he did great, and I think his acting in it was great. I mean, I can't complain. And like in Scarface or any of his other movies, he's great acting. So,
do you think he always has great acting?
Everything I've seen him in.
Did you see Jack and Jill?
Oh, no, because that movie's horrible. So, any movie I haven't seen, yeah, I don't know about.
Have you not heard of the song he has in that movie?
No.
I forget what company he's working for. It's like a fast food, but he has this ridiculous, stupid song, and I feel like that kind of ruins his career a little bit. Like, why did you do that?
Yeah, that movie, I haven't seen it, but I've heard enough to where I don't want to waste an hour and a half or however long that movie is of my life.
So if you want to see something really stupid, check that out.
Yeah, which, if you're a big fan of him, you might not want to.
But one of the really cool things about Al Pacino in this movie, this was one of his first movies. I think this was like it was his first real big movie. He had like maybe one or two smaller parts in other films, but this was his first big part, and he just hit the ball out of the park.
I think technically it was his third film, but yeah, technically this is also
big film. I'm talking about
right,
big film.
Right. This is what put him on the map, no doubt. So can't go wrong with Godfather.
Also, we also want to mention James Caan. He plays his brother Sonny. I also think he did great.
Mm-hmm.
He also did a little improvising with his scenes. There's this one scene where he's trying to kick his brother-in-law's ass because he's hitting on his sister. So there's a scene where they're in like a street, and he starts beating the crap out of him, and the guy tries to hold on to like this railing. So he takes a trash can and just beats him with a trash can. This was not scripted. This is something James Caan actually did. And there was, like, I think a couple broken bones from this scene.
Yeah, I never knew that. That's crazy.
Another person was Robert Duvall. I'm not too positive, but I'm pretty sure this is probably one of his earlier films, and he also does great. And it's really weird seeing him with hair.
Yeah, it really is. That's, again, another character, another actor in it that I forgot was in Godfather. So when I seen him, I'm like, oh my god, I didn't know he was in Godfather. But yeah, he did great acting in it, like always. I mean, he did great acting. I thought at one point he was definitely going to get whacked.
You never know. So the other person from Scarface, the actor Stephen Bauer, he played Manny, the Tony Montana's best friend. I actually took 0.5 off because I thought his character was annoying as hell. So, and he's also very forgettable. When you think of Scarface, you think of Al Pacino, and that's the only thing you think of. You think of Al Pacino and cocaine.
Yeah.
Not my cocaine, but cocaine the drug. So let's move on to special effects. What did you think about the special effects in The Godfather?
I thought the special effects was right on cue, just like how we mentioned about the horse's head. Everything in it, from the blood, the shootings in it, the guns, everything in it looked superb to me. So, what do you think, Zach?
I thought the costume and props were very age appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
I read a thing, I didn't even really notice this the first time I watched it, or not the first time, but last time I watched it. The bumpers of the cars were wooden, and during this time, which was set in 1946 at the beginning, I believe, they have just came out of World War II, and during that time, metal was scarce because they were having to send all their metal overseas to help build weapons, bullets, all that stuff. So back then they would have wooden bumpers on these cars, and they actually put this in the movie, and it actually makes it more authentic, which I think is great. The costumes are great. Another thing was the horse's head in that director's bed. Looks very, very real, on the point where we're questioning if it's real or not. And that's all I gotta say about that. So, moving on to, well, first off, I'm just going to say I took 0 off for that one.
Yeah, same with me. 0 off for Godfather.
Alright, so for Scarface, I also took 0 off for this because I thought that it had some pretty good effects. I was reading a thing where the cocaine that they used, the director refuses to admit what they actually used. They were going to use this other substance, and it just did not look right. And they used something else, and we don't know to today what that is. It could have been cocaine. I don't know. Also, mentioning that bathroom scene again, very bloody, looks very good. That's one of the most memorable scenes.
Yeah, I couldn't take anything off for Scarface either.
And another scene, wasn't this the movie where a guy gets pushed out of a plane?
Helicopter?
Yeah, helicopter.
Mm-hmm.
That's also a very well done scene as well.
Yeah, he gives them the binoculars to look up at the sky, and that's when they see him all beaten up and duct tape on his mouth, and he pushes him out and hangs him from a helicopter. Pretty brutal.
So, I mean, it actually looks like the guy's, dangling. So let's move on to score. Tell me about the score of The Godfather.
Godfather, I love the little theme music they play in it. So I think it sounds good. It gets me more when I hear it. When you hear that theme music of Godfather, it sucks you right into watching The Godfather.
My thing is that it's very memorable. When that music starts playing, you know you're watching The Godfather. So, with that being said, I took 0 off because to get 0 points off for a score, it has to be one of those scores that you know what movie it is as soon as it starts playing. Stuff like Raiders of the Lost Ark, Star Wars, you know those movies by their music.
The Walking Dead.
That also.
Sucks you right in.
But say like the score from like Pineapple Express, I could not even tell you what that sounds like. So that would be like an average. And if something were like super annoying, doesn't place, like the score from The Watchmen, that was really bad. So that would get at least 0.75 off.
And I also feel the same way about Scarface.
How's the music go?
There's a couple actual different music in Scarface. If you watch the very ending where he gets shot off of that little balcony in his mansion, they play this awesome score music where it like gets very serious. To me, I can't tell you how it goes, but just the sound of it just sounds like a serious, like dramatic moment where he gets shot.
That right there is why you can't take 0 off. If you can't tell me how it goes.
I can't tell you how it goes, but
how does Star Wars go?
Well, I can tell you Star Wars has got different ones.
Well, what is the main music from Star Wars?
You got the Darth Vader one that's really iconic. The dun 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 dun.
Actually, that's called the March of the Emperor.
Well,
it's
part of
Empire March.
Well, that's one of the songs. But Scarface, I'm telling you, a lot of people out there, if you watch the ending, that score music they play is really, really creepy. It really sinks it in, and it zooms back and it shows you that whole Earth globe thing where it's there down where he fell down in that little pond thing he's got in his house. it zooms back and it's still playing that music really loud and it's real creepy. Anybody out there that loves Scarface is gonna know what I'm talking about. That music really adds to that ending scene.
I love Scarface, and I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, then you don't know Scarface enough. Then Scarface, that
I've watched the movie a lot of times, and I can't tell you any of the music from it.
Well, I'm telling you, the ending, that song they play, really makes it real creepy at the end.
You know what? I love Indiana Jones. See, I remember that.
Oh, I cannot take off for Scarface. I cannot take
Hell,
off.
even Titanic. I know the theme songs to that.
Well, we know you do. You sing in the shower.
Yeah. My heart will go on.
For me, I can't take off. I can't take off any points. What do you take off, Zach?
I took off 0.5 because I can't remember anything from it.
Okay.
It's not on the level of Godfather. It's if music was playing from that movie, I would not be able to pick that movie out.
I don't know. Maybe you need to rewatch that ending to Scarface. Believe me, it really adds to that scene. If they didn't have that music there at the end of Scarface, it would have never made that ending as cool as it was and memorable for me.
Did you ever hear that song by The Lonely Island called Captain Jack?
No.
They have a segment where they have a Scarface segment in that song. I remember that. I don't remember anything from Scarface.
You don't remember? Okay.
So basically, this song has Michael Bolton, and he keeps talking about movies. So the end of it, he goes, "You want to play rough? Okay, I'm reloaded. This is a tale of Tony Montana."
I don't think I've ever heard that song.
And like goes into snorting mountains of cocaine. So I remember that Scarface. Nothing. I got a blank.
Okay.
So it's 0.5 off for me.
So what's the other one?
Next up, we have the entertainment value. Sorry, every time I say entertainment, I have to say entertainment because down south there is a stupid store. It's about trains, and it's called the Entertainment Store. So stupid. So bear with me. If you hear me say entertainment, that is why. And I'm sorry that I'm not sorry because it's hilarious. So, what do you think about the entertainment value? Does it keep you hooked?
It keeps me hooked, but there's just too many dragging moments, especially that part that I talked about earlier about how they take him to another country to hide out for a while.
We're speaking about The Godfather, of course.
Yes, The Godfather. That scene there, that long scene, and there's other scenes too, but really mainly that number one scene there is where it really kills the moment for me, and that's kind of getting towards the end of the movie too, and that's when, to me, I really want the movie to be, really on it to keep me attached to the story. So, for me, I had to take off 0.75 off of like rewatchable entertainment with Godfather. With Scarface, since Scarface is more entertaining, if I'm going to sit down and watch a mafia type movie that's going to be 3 hours long, that's going to entertain me from beginning to end, to me it's going to be Scarface than Godfather. I will give it that Godfather does have the serious drama and everything, and it's got the acting down and everything like that, but to me, if I'm going to stay awake from beginning to end of 3 hours long, it's going to be Scarface. So to me, I only took off 0.25 off of Scarface.
All right, for me, for The Godfather, even though that every scene has something to do with the rest of the movie, everything happens for a reason in this movie. Even when he goes overseas, yes, he is in hiding. He finds a wife, but that also shows the death of his wife. When I forget what family it is, but they go after Sonny. Then they try to go after Michael, which they fail and accidentally kill his wife. That right there, you have to get kind of backstory of why this woman dies. Because if you don't show him falling in love with her and blah blah blah, you're not going to care that she gets blown up.
I just really didn't care at all, and I just didn't like how when he came back to take over join his father's business, and then he gets back with that previous girl.
What is up with that? As soon as he gets back, he's like, "Okay, I want you to marry me."
Yeah, I just didn't really care for that. I thought that story plot there, that whole thing there with Michael there, I just did not care at all.
One thing that's crazy is she's like, "How long have you been back?" And he's like, "I've been back a year." I'm like, how does this time jump a year already?
Yeah, I really didn't like it, because I also, like you just said, I felt like they rushed it real fast with that whole him marrying that girl in the other country, and then she blowing up, and then him coming back real quick and saying he wants to marry this other previous girl that he totally gave the cold shoulder and ran off to the country thing. I just felt like the way they did that whole story plot there, I really just confused about it. It really just lost me real badly at that long moment.
I want to know what everyone else did within that year. Were they just sitting around making spaghetti all the time?
Right, yeah.
I mean, I understand they had to lay low because Michael killed a cop, but
right,
they had been doing something to piss off the other families.
As I said, you still had the rival of the other families, of them coming after him and all that. So, I mean, they just killed the brother and all that, and, the Godfather dying type thing. I don't understand that whole part there of Godfather. It really did lost me real bad, and I think that's what hurts me the most about Godfather. I think if it wasn't for that big chunk right there of Godfather, I would have been way more, saying that I'm way more for Godfather than Scarface. I just felt that part right there really damaged me badly.
I just imagine Michael comes back and like, Michael, we made a spicy meatball for you. You've been gone for so long.
Right.
We have the spaghetti lasagna. Oh, it's so great. I really want to say opa, but that's Greek.
Have a meatball. Yeah, I don't know. That just, like I said, that was what really killed my rewatchable. Rewatching Godfather again was just.
Well, rewatchability is different. We're talking about entertainment right now.
Well, I feel like that's in the entertainment part.
Well, they're two separate segments.
Yeah, well, I mean, both with entertainment and rewatchable to me are really similar, and I think that it has to be very entertaining, especially when it comes to 3 hours long. These both movies are really long movies to sit through. So if you're really tired, I think you're gonna have more of a chance of falling asleep at night of Godfather.
Basically, if you're really tired, don't watch any movie.
Well, I mean, true. If you're tired, don't watch a movie. But still, I'm just saying, if it's late at night and you're like, well, I want to watch a good mafia movie and stuff, you're gonna fall asleep quicker on Godfather than Scarface.
Okay, for one thing, never do that. Don't be like, oh, I'm tired, I'm gonna watch a mafia movie, because all the mafia movies are quite long.
Right.
All of them are dramas.
Right.
So.
Right. True.
But overall, I took 0.5 off, despite it being so great. Just for the fact that it is slow at times, and it is slow a lot during the movie. Even though that when it's not slow, it is awesome. It's very compelling.
You still got great acting and stuff, so I mean, you still get something out of it, regardless.
All right, so let's talk a little bit of entertainment for Scarface. I took 0.25 off of this one. It is very entertaining, very exciting, but I had to take 0.25 off just for the fact that there are a lot of annoying parts in this movie.
Yeah, for me, the movie is just entertainment to me, and that's what you're going to get with a crazy, epic movie with drug lord movie with him and Scarface. I mean, there's always something going on pretty much through the movie. I mean, it does have its little bit slow moments, kind of like Godfather does, but overall, there's enough to go around when you're watching from beginning to end that there's something crazy going on in it that you're just like wanting to know what's gonna happen next. But so for me, entertainment wise, I couldn't take off anything on entertainment wise for me for Scarface.
All right, so we're gonna move on to rewatchability. For The Godfather, I put 2.5 off, 0.25. Sorry, I'm stumbling a little bit. I can't help it.
We just worked third shift.
Yeah, we're doing this in the morning. We're tired, but we're doing this for you guys.
Right.
It's all for you. It was for you. Wasn't that from The Omen?
No.
All for you, Damien.
She jumps off and hangs herself. Yeah.
So for The Godfather, even though it is slow, the story is just so good. I'm going to rewatch this. I rewatch this movie at least once a year, so I can only take 0.25 off. For Scarface, I put 0.5 off because this movie is outdated. It is old. The Godfather is more classic. It is timeless. So I put 0.5 off for that one, just for the fact that I don't watch this movie every year. I watch this movie once every every 2 to 3 years or so. I mean, it's been probably about 2 to 3 years since I've watched this, honestly.
Yeah.
But I do remember everything from this movie for the most part. Okay, so what would your final scores for these movies be, and which one do you think is the better film?
Well, for Godfather, I have a score of 9.25, and I have Scarface at a 9.50. So, to me, I think they're about tied. I just think Scarface has a little bit of a nudge just because of rewatchable and entertainment-wise. But besides that, I mean, to me, the movies are almost equal to me. So, I know a lot of people out there is probably thinking, like, this guy's out of his freaking mind. Godfather's...
I'm sitting here thinking the same thing. How are you giving this a 9.5?
So, yeah, a lot of people out there is probably really thinking, like, there's just no freaking way. But, again, it's called opinions. People just bear with it.
I'm fairly certain you took more than 0.5 off.
Well, I took 2.5 off of the co-starring and 2.
We're going back through this, and we're going to see what he... All right, so what did you take off for story?
I 0. There's only 2.5 for the co-starring, and there's 2.5 for... Where was it? There was another one.
Score?
Was it the score? It was one of them. I only took off... There's only 2 different categories where I took off 2.5. So
what about entertainment?
Entertainment's a 0.
Rewatchability?
0.
So you're going to rewatch this movie like twice a year?
I could easily watch Scarface.
Twice a year?
I could.
Because when you take 0.0 off, this is a movie you're going to watch 2-3 times a year, not once every 2 to 3 years.
I could watch Scarface way more than I can watch Godfather. Plain and simple.
You're crazy.
Well, go on. Let's see what your score is. What's your score?
All right. My scores for The Godfather is 9.0. Yes, I rated a little bit lower, but I actually sat here and thought about this.
Oh, I did too?
I don't know how you took 0.25 off of the supporting actor. That guy was annoying as hell. And for Scarface, I took off 0.8. That is very reasonable. Okay. If you guys go on to IMDb,
it's real close.
Which I scored this before I even looked at that. The Godfather has a 9.2 and Scarface has an 8.3.
Right.
So
yeah, it's pretty close. It's just
I don't know what movie you're watching.
There's just sometimes my opinion is different than IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes. My opinion sometimes is a little different, and mainly it could be because Scarface, I grew up watching that 100 times growing up, way more than I watched Godfather.
So you have the nostalgia effect.
Yeah, so I might have more of a hard-on, you might say, for Scarface than I do Godfather because of that reason. So that might be why my scoring is like that. But
Jesus Christ. All right, so we have 2 more people that need to get their opinions out. First up, we have our first guest star for the podcast. His name is Herman, and he is part of the hockey podcast, Your Team Sucks. So let's hear what this guy got to say. We're very interested, and we're very happy that he agreed to be a part of this podcast. So let's see what he has to say.
Hey guys, this is Herman from Your Team Sucks, the hockey podcast. I really appreciate you guys giving me the time to talk about Godfather and Scarface. Both really good movies, but I think that one of them is definitely better than the other. So let's start with the one I watched first, which was Scarface. And again, thank you for giving me 2 3-hour movies to watch, even though they're supposed to be one of the best in the gangster genre. Okay, let's start with Scarface. So, was done in 1983. It was done by Brian De Palma. And you can really feel that it was done in 1983. The score is one big factor. The way people talk and dress is one big thing. So, the movie seems really dated. When rewatching this movie, I can really tell that this was a movie done specifically for that time. Which, in a sense, it could be good and bad, but with Scarface, it is something that's it's a deterrent more than it gives into the movie. Al Pacino, his accent is really weird and jarring. I'm a person that comes from South America, so I can tell when somebody's speaking very bad Spanish, and Al Pacino speaks pretty bad Spanish. I'm sorry to say, Al. And his accent is really weird, and it's, I guess, when you hear it for 3 hours, like, you kind of lose it for a bit, but then you kind of regain it when he says some lines, and you're like, what the hell was that? So it seems really weird. But in the sense of the plot, it's a pretty basic plot. Somebody who was somebody that went to jail in Cuba, comes to the States, learns about drugs, becomes a kingpin, and loses it all for his ambition, and his controlness, and and that's it. And then he dies. So, what did we learn from this? I really don't know. The only thing I can take away from it is don't get high off your own supply. But at the same time, here's the thing that I did like about Scarface. There's 2 scenes specifically that I like about Scarface. One of them was the chainsaw scene. It was really well directed. It was really well acted, specifically by Pacino. Pacino was, you can tell in his eyes that he was really scared for his partner and really scared for his own life, but at the same time still trying to be defiant. And it was this kind of subdued performance that I didn't really see throughout the whole movie. My other favorite scene was at the start when he's talking to those policemen and trying to convince them that he's not a criminal and that he belongs in the U.S. and he had a big problem in Cuba. And that's something that's you can tell he was dancing. You can tell that Al Pacino was actually trying to move around the speech and these cops. So it worked out really well for me. I thought it was really well made, and the way Pacino acted in both of those scenes was really subdued compared to the rest of the movie. So it's really interesting seeing this movie and then comparing it to The Godfather. Now, The Godfather, the way Al Pacino acts in those 2 scenes in Scarface is the way he acts throughout the movie in The Godfather. And it's interesting to see both Scarface and The Godfather back to back, because that's all you can really think about is Al Pacino's performance and how different it is in both those movies. Now, Al Pacino in The Godfather acts completely subdued. He acts more to his chest. He's more of a show instead of tell in The Godfather. The way Michael Corleone is played is more calm. He's more kind of a man of action, and more of he's going to take people's advice, but he's not going to dispense advice. He's actually going to not tell you what he's going to do, but he's going to keep it to his chest. And his eyes are always moving. you can tell in the scene, specifically in the scene where he is about to kill those two cops. It's a very, very famous scene, probably one of the best in The Godfather, where he comes out with the gun, and you can see him stare, and his eyes are moving, and you can see his nervousness and he's very, very cautious and anxious, and he is not saying anything, but you can tell in his eyes that he's nervous to do this. But then in the end, he just gets up the will and just does it and kill those two cops and starts off the whole plot. So this is an important scene compared to the chainsaw scene in Scarface, which is kind of very identical in both those scenes. Like, the only thing different is that he's saved in Scarface while he's being a man of action in The Godfather. But the way Al Pacino acts throughout The Godfather is what makes that movie the way it is. And it's interesting watching Scarface and seeing the way his craziness kind of comes out. Like Al Pacino's craziness, which kind of goes into an apex in The Scent of a Woman, where he starts yelling and he starts using his hand motions, really kind of begins with Scarface and the way he was popularized in that movie. Not only that, both of these movies, widely quoted. There's a lot of quotes and scenes that have been said many times, jokingly or in other different formats. But when you see Godfather's highly quoted scenes being shown again, they still seem fresh. They still seem like it belongs. It still seems like, oh yeah, this belongs in the movie. It seems ignorant and not ignorant, poignant. It still seems like it belongs in the actual frame of the film. But when you see it in Scarface, you kind of laugh. Like you see, say hello to my little friend, and you're like, hee hee hee, it's just funny. Or you see, say hello to the bad guy. And then you kind of, all I can think of was wrestling, to be honest. But at the same time, it's really weird to see those movies again. And kind of laugh at Scarface. And when you see, I'm going to give him an offer he can't refuse in The Godfather, and then you're like, whoa, Vito Corleone. And that's all you can think about. So it's really interesting to juxtapose those two films. And it's funny, too, I don't know if you guys meant this, but the theme in Scarface was basically don't do drugs. And in The Godfather, Vito Corleone warns about getting involved in drugs and how that will be. And, that turned out pretty bad for him. It kind of gets moved on to Scarface. I don't know if you guys meant that or not, but it was really cool to see that too, seeing that back to back. So yeah, I really think Godfather beats Scarface 10 times out of 10. I don't see any way where someone could pick Scarface over The Godfather. I don't see it. And not only that, I don't really see many faults in The Godfather. Godfather and Scarface are about the same running time. Maybe, I think Godfather's like 5 minutes longer. But Godfather seems quicker. It seems paced. Whereas Scarface seems long. And I was waiting for Scarface to get on with it. And in The Godfather, I wasn't. Like, that plot was well constructed and well made. And the way Michael Corleone's arc plays out is so fresh and so new, and it still feels that way compared to Scarface, where it just feels like I've seen this so many times over and over again that maybe Scarface wasn't the first one to do it, but it won't be the last one to do it too. I've seen that kind of plot over and over again. With Godfather, I have never seen that plot again, and rightfully so. I think it belongs with that movie. I think it's a timeless movie, and I think it's something that as a film buff and as a film geek, I don't really know if there's faults in it. If you guys find faults in it, that's wow. I'll be impressed and shocked, and then you might be right. But at the same time, I can't find any faults in it. So yeah, Godfather wins 10 times out of 10.
Okie dokie, sound like he had some pretty good comments for both films, and again, we are sorry that we had you watch 2 3-hour-long movies. If you ever get on the podcast again, we promise that we'll make you watch an hour, 50-minute movie, 2-hour movies.
But at least you can say that you didn't waste your time, because these are two great big classics, so even though you wasted 6 hours total, at least you can say you watched two big classic movies.
Brian almost said glassic.
Glassic.
I'm gonna put some drink in this glass. Is glassic a combination of plastic and glass?
I think it is. It's a new texture.
I think we just came up with a new product called glassic.
Right.
It's very durable glass.
We're going to become very rich, so be looking to see us on TV and stuff. So,
when you're thirsty, just take a drink and pour it in your glass stick. Hey. All right, so let's see what Robbie has to say about these two movies.
Well, we don't care.
We all know he's just gonna be wrong. So, what do you think he's gonna say?
I'm gonna go with Godfather for him. I have a feeling he has a thing for the Godfather. I see a little twinkle in his eyes the other day.
That twinkle might have been for something else. But I have a theory that whatever movie I pick, he picks the opposite. So since I went with The Godfather, I feel like he's going to go with Scarface.
Uh-oh.
I think this is a theory. We need to test this every week.
Robbie and Zach go head-to-head a lot with their opinions, so...
I can't help that I'm right.
He's probably out listening like, you bastard.
It's not that I'm right. I also have evidence to support. I don't care. This guy likes Twilight.
And Scream 4.
And Scream 4. Robbie, we're sorry we're bashing on you a little bit, but since you didn't come because you were too tired, we're tired too. We also have worked a lot. We're going to talk smack. And we apologize.
Regardless, we can't hear what he has to say.
So, let's see what Robbie has to say. I rephrase this. Let's see what wrong things he has to say.
I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse. Alright, everybody, it is Cinema Showdown! Alright, so this week we have chosen two of the greatest mob films ever made. One is considered not only the best mob film ever made, but also one of the greatest movies of all genres. We have the 1972 The Godfather versus the 1983 Scarface. Al Pacino stars in both films. So I feel like he's kind of like in a win-win situation here. The original Godfather starred Marlon Brando, Al Pacino, James Caan, Robert Duvall. The film went on to win 3 Oscars for Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Screenplay. It was selected in 1990 by the National Film Registry for preservation, which is like a big honor. Pretty much like only movies that was like culturally phenomenal gets entered into this. That honor was blessed upon The Godfather in 1990. The Internet Movie Database gives The Godfather a 92%. I'm sorry, it's actually a 9.2. And Rotten Tomatoes gives it the 99%, which is really impressive. Scarface, which also stars Al Pacino, has Stephen Bauer in it, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Maria Elizabeth Mastrantonio, I think that's how you pronounce her name, and Robert Loggia. He's a pretty well-known actor when you see his face. Some people might not recognize his name. That film did not get any Academy attention, which I think is outrageous. To me, the film should have won some Oscars. Internet Movie Database gives it an 8.3, and Rotten Tomatoes gives it a 83%, which is pretty much the same exact score. In 1972, The Godfather made $81 million, and at that time was like the biggest film ever made as far as box office goes. It made more money than any film previously. So The Godfather was re-released a couple times and went on to make a total of $135 million, which is a lot of money for a film back in that time. Scarface was a little more on the smaller side as far as box office grosses, but still impressive for 1983. It made $45 million. So we're going to get into some pros and cons here, and I cannot wait to see what everybody else thought of this week on these two. I actually just reviewed The Godfather a couple nights ago to kind of freshen myself up on that film. I've seen Scarface quite a bit over the years, but I've only really watched The Godfather once or twice growing up, so I really felt like I needed to refresh on that film. And my review of The Godfather is actually really well. I really think it's definitely deserved a lot of the praise and honor it gets. I don't think it's as good as what a lot of people puts it up on this high pedestal, like I said earlier, as far as it being like, you know, the greatest movie ever made, or a lot of people have it like in second or third. I know a lot of people consider Citizen Kane one of the greatest movies ever made, and Vertigo is another one that you see a lot at the top of people's list. By the way, I thought I should mention, both of these films clock in just a few minutes shy of 3 hours. So both of these films are really long. So of course you're going to have a little moments that drag, but I feel like The Godfather has more of those moments that drag. I feel like the beginning of the film is a little bit slow to take off for me, but then it gets really, really good. And then about middle ways of the film, when Al Pacino's character Michael has to leave the country, the film kind of starts to take a little drag again. So there's moments of the movie being kind of slow, but not too slow that you're too bored or, you know, you want to turn it off. Then it picks back up with other compelling scenes. Scarface is the same thing. I just don't think Scarface does it as bad. I think Scarface, to me, stays a little bit more entertaining and a little bit more compelling. Between the two films, The Godfather is more realistic than Scarface. Scarface is a little more outrageous and, you know, more of a Hollywood kind of like film put together, you know, just to really entertain us and not be too realistic. The only really thing I can knock about both films is there's a little bit of dragging. I felt like Marlon Brando's character, his portrayal, didn't really... I know he wins an Oscar for Best Actor at the Academy the following year. I wasn't really that impressed with his character in this film. I mean, for the most part, he comes across to me as like one-dimensional. You know, he constantly is in this... You know, it's times like this when family has to come together and be there for each other. And, you know, he's constantly talking like this, and I want you to do your magic, your powers, and your skills to make my boy not look like this. His mother doesn't deserve to see him this way. For the most part, Marlon Brando is like just showing this one expression, this one tone, this one personality. The only time he really shows any kind of other expression or personality is like in the beginning of the film. There's a little scene where he snaps, and then the scene where he's standing over his son in the morgue. and he's kind of breaking down, crying. That scene there I like a lot. I wasn't too impressed. I did love Al Pacino in it, and James Caan's awesome in it too, and even Robert Duvall. In Scarface, Al Pacino just pretty much steals the show, the whole film. I mean, it's iconic. I mean, who can ever forget the line, say hello to my little friend? And then we'll end it at that because there's about 1 million other cuss words, so try to keep this thing not rated R. So, to pretty much end this because it's starting to drag on a little bit here, my final rating for The Godfather is 8.75 out of 10 stars. My final rating for Scarface is 9.25. So I know I'm kind of going against what everybody else in the world probably thinks. I know most people, probably 7 or 8 out of 10 people, consider The Godfather the best mob film ever made. But for my taste and my entertainment, my two favorite mob films is probably between Scarface and Goodfellas. And to me, Goodfellas is like very hard to beat. Another mob movie that I'm crazy about is The Untouchables. So, therefore, I give Godfather 8.75, Scarface 9.25. So the winner of this showdown, Tony Montana!
Well. Looks like I was correct.
Yep, looks like Zach called it. He went with Scarface.
My name is Tony Montana. Sorry. I don't know where I was going with that. Alright, before I announce the winner of this showdown, I'm going to throw in some quotes that I found on Reddit. The other day I had posted on Reddit, which movie's better, Scarface or The Godfather? On Reddit, Captain Enzel had said, one movie is an epic, one is not. I wonder what they're talking about. The next person, this is by Enraged Jester, he quoted saying, Scarface has aged very poorly. There's so many cheesy moments, and I cringe at Al Pacino's performance. It's still a classic movie, but I wouldn't consider it a great film per se. Another person, Jack Kelly, I'm a lawyer, had said, one is over-the-top gangster drug, glory picture. Basically, one is a crime family saga of epic greatness. And the last one I wrote down, there's about 10 comments, all going towards the same movie. The last person is pretty much the funniest one I read. This is from Zeno84. He said, is this for real?
We gave him some humor.
Yeah, so it looks like the intranet thinks that The Godfather is best. But we're not counting them because they're not part of this. So it looks like we have 2 versus 2. It's a draw. Go figure. I did not see that coming. I thought at least one of the Williams twins would have gone with one of them, but twins think alike.
Twins think alike.
Even though they're not twins, they might as well be.
Hey, what family watches movies together stick together, so.
You might also say a family that has glue on them sticks together too, so.
Right.
Alright, so up next we have some discussion questions that we have came up with, and I also asked Reddit for some discussion questions, so let's get into it. So you have came up with a discussion question, Brian.
Yes, mine was, should either movies get remade or have more sequels?
My personal opinion for the remake comment is hell to the no.
Yeah, and I agree 1,000%.
If someone were to go out there and remake The Godfather, no one would watch it. And I honestly do not know who would be able to recreate those roles.
Yeah, I wouldn't even touch it.
If you were to recreate The Godfather, who would you have star in it?
There's nobody, to be honest. I mean, I if I was a director, I'd be scared to death to touch it. I don't know what idiot out there director would be like, okay, I'm going to remake this big time classic Godfather or Scarface. There's just no way. I just don't see no director. I don't see no actor that could play the leading role of Tony Montana. Or I don't know. I don't see it happening.
I honestly can't even think of like too many Italian actors nowadays that would be able to. Like, would they have Ray Barone?
No, I'm almost pretty sure if they did ever they would have to come up with like brand new actors, like you really haven't heard much about, that has some really great talent. But I'd still...
You would definitely want to go with unknown actors, because if you mess this up, your career is over.
Yeah, pretty much. I would never attempt it. Now sequels wise, if they would have did sequels back then when they just made it, like they made sequels to Godfather, but with like Scarface, if they would have made sequels with him and Scarface, yeah, I can't see what they would come up with a sequel.
You can't do a Scarface sequel because he dies at the end.
He dies, so
I mean, unless
they could get
he somehow had a bulletproof vest on and that wasn't actually his blood.
Well, I was thinking like other characters that survived in it, which wasn't that many. Maybe
who survived in it? Everyone died.
Yeah, like I said, there's mostly everyone died in it. So there's
Al
really...
Pacino dies. His friend Manny, his sister dies.
Right.
Those were the main three people that were in the entire movie, and they're all dead.
Well, pretty much everyone died in Scarface. So again, to come up with a sequel, I don't know how you would make a sequel to Scarface.
I don't know either. Scarface technically probably could be remade because it was already a remake itself.
Right.
So, I mean, it could be the Spider-Man of gangster movies.
Yeah, I think we'll just stick with the originals here. We won't remake it for 2015 or so.
Alright, so one of the questions I found on Reddit said, is there any movies that can rival the two? So, since they're both kind of different movies, what other mafia movie do you think would possibly... I know nothing's going to be able to, but what would do its best to compare to The Godfather?
Well, I know recent movies-wise, like the Gangster Squad, those movies, I thought that movie was like okay, but there's just nowhere in heck coming close to Godfather or Scarface. Now, if you go back to maybe the 90s with movies like Goodfellas, that's another big movie I love. I love Goodfellas. I think that might be actually my number one movie of all time with the mafias or mob movies, period. I just love Goodfellas, but recent right now in the last maybe decade, I can't think of any movies that really comes close to even comparing to those two classics there. Can you think of any, Zach?
With speaking of Godfather first, the only movie at the top of my head at the current time, I'm also looking up the name of this one movie because I don't want to mess it up, but the closest thing I can come up with is also Goodfellas. That is actually my favorite mafia movie. I like this movie better than The Godfather. Godfather is a better film, but I like Goodfellas better.
And that's why I love Zach, because exactly what he said is exactly on the money for me too. I feel the same exact way about Goodfellas, and comparing it to Scarface and Godfather and stuff. Goodfellas is, to me, like probably a perfect 10, probably. So what was the movie you were speaking about?
This other movie is called Once Upon a Time in America. This movie is about a former Prohibition-era Jewish gangster returns to the Lower East Side of Manhattan over 30 years later, where he once again must confront the ghosts of his regrets of his old life. I actually seen this movie only one time. It is 3 hours and 49 minutes long. That is why I've only seen this movie one time. But I feel like this is an epic movie that could be somewhat comparable, but overall I think Goodfellas is the best bet.
Yeah.
But
I think so too.
Goodfellas, you have Ray Liotta, which Brian didn't know who he was earlier this morning.
Again, a blonde moment. I did figure it out eventually.
His Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci. It's directed by Martin Scorsese. So, great movie. Martin Scorsese knows his gangster mafia movies. So does Robert De Niro.
Right.
Now, what movie do you think would be able to rival Scarface? I have one already.
Which one's that?
Have you ever seen the movie Blow?
No.
This movie is another Rise to Power movie starring Johnny Depp. He plays this guy who he starts off, selling pot, and then he works his way up to selling cocaine, and actually gets imprisoned for selling the substance. And it's really sad because there at the end, he sees his daughter, and his daughter really has nothing to do with him, and it is just a great performance by Johnny Depp. And I also think Penelope Cruz is in it, I think. But yeah, you should definitely check it out.
Yeah,
It is very similar. It has to do with a drug lord. It has to do with cocaine. Definitely check it out. When I first saw this movie, I watched this movie a ton.
Yeah, I'll have to check that one out. That definitely won't be on my list. Speaking of Johnny Depp, too, one movie that could kind of rival one of these movies is a movie that's coming out soon with Johnny Depp, and that's Black Mass. This movie, in the trailers, it's getting me very, very pumped to see it. And this could be the very movie of in our day and time right now, as we speak, present, that could rival these type of movies like Goodfellas, Scarface, and Godfather. So I'm hoping that it does. I keep hearing that this character Johnny Depp is playing is his best acting and character that he's done by far. So I hope it's true, and I can't wait to see that movie coming up.
Also, another real good thing about the movie Blow, it is based on a true story.
Is it?
Yep.
Huh.
It's about George Young, the man who established the American cocaine market in the 1970s.
Huh.
So he is the man that brought the powder.
Yeah, I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah, definitely. It's an awesome movie. Alright, so I think that probably wraps that part up. So another question we have is, does the pacing of each movie affect it at all? I think it does.
Right, I think so too. It just depends on, exactly how much you're interested into each film. So,
but you also got to think, back in the day, people had more of an attention span. Today, we all have ADHD, and we want movies that are fast-paced, like Transformers. I always joke with Brian and Robbie that, I always say, well, I know it's not Transformers, but...
Or it's not Too Fast, Too Furious.
Yeah, exactly.
Which ain't true to me. Like I said, I like slow-paced drama-type movies. It's just got to be done the right way, in a great way.
Yeah. It seems nowadays people need to have that constant visual stimulation to keep their mind going, but...
Just like I said, depends on what it is. Because even movies like Gravity, I think visually it's a great movie, but storyline and stuff like that, I could care less about that movie, to be honest.
Yeah. Basically, that movie, you have to go watch it in the theaters and just not watch it again.
Yeah.
All right, so the next one, does the difference in culture origins of the gangs affect how people react? So with The Godfather, we have the Italians, and Scarface, we have the Cubans. So how do you think the cultural aspect of each movie affects the movie?
I think majorly. I think that's the reason why we also get so connected in the worlds of The Godfather and Scarface, because I think they both give you an excellent feel of their culture, of Cuban and the Italian, especially with the mob and mafia. I think you get a really good taste of what it sort of is like. I understand it's not. I think it's about as real as it can get on film for you. So I don't know what you think, Zach.
I feel that the culture aspect of it plays a great part of it. Hey, I only did that because you said taste. You think
sorry.
taste, you think
Yeah.
tastes good.
I'm sorry.
What's that from?
Taste, yeah.
It's like tastes good.
I think of Scary Movie 2.
No, that's not from Scary Movie 2. It's gonna kill me. I gotta know what that is. If you're listening to this on YouTube, Put in the comment section what movie this is, because I want to know. Tastes good. Okay. So with The Godfather, you have the Italians. The big theme with them is respect, and that is a big thing in the movie. They don't want to step on the toes of the other families because they hold a certain respect for them. And once that respect is broken, all hell breaks loose. They start killing each other like crazy. And also, that also puts in effect with Michael accepting his power of the family, because it's a respect. He respects his father's wishes to name him as the heir of the empire. Now, with Scarface, like I said, I don't know too much about Cubans, but it seems like it's very power hungry. This one maybe not so much, just because I'm not too familiar with the culture, but
I just know a lot of drug lord movies that I've watched with Cuban. They're all really similar of how they act and portray the characters in the film. So I think it's in Scarface. It's pretty good.
I thought you were just gonna say pretty.
It's pretty. Any more questions?
I am out of questions, so
Okay.
we're going to move on to the last little bit of the podcast.
We're gonna do movie pitches.
We're going to do the movie pitches. If this is your first time listening, the movie pitch is where we take the genre of the movies that we're doing for the showdown, and we place a actor that would not normally be seen in these type of movies. So for this week, we have a gangster or mafia movie that is going to star the one, the only, Michael Cera. If you don't know who Michael Cera is, he is the little geeky kid from Arrested Development. He's also in Superbad. He plays Jonah Hill's best friend.
This is the end.
He's also This Is the End. He slaps Rihanna on the ass and she punches him.
Hilarious.
But first off, we're going to go ahead and see what our guest speaker, again, his name is Herman, and he has the podcast, Your Team Sucks, a hockey podcast. So check out his podcast if you like hockey and sports. It's definitely one to look at or listen to, because it's a podcast. So first up, we have him.
Okay, I have a pitch for a movie. So this is Michael Cera working his way through a mafia movie, but he's just gonna stumble his way through. He's just gonna be like a Forrest Gump of this movie. You know, we're gonna take him and put him into a mafia family, and he doesn't really know that he's like part of a mafia family. He just thinks everyone's rich because of startups and because his family is like are internet billionaires, but he doesn't know that everyone else is a mafia member. Somehow he stumbles his way into the family, and they have to include him now for some reason. So they're like, yo, okay, I'm gonna call him Nicky. Can Nicky go and kill this? Actually, no, you're not gonna kill anybody. You're gonna hack into this person's account and release the sex tape that's hidden in his computer, and we're all gonna make fun of him. And because you're part of the youth, you're gonna contract Drake because we got a lot of money, and he's gonna release a mixtape blasting that guy. Boom. So that guy's gone, and all of a sudden, Michael Cera's character Nicky, he becomes this powerful figure inside the family, just because he knows Instagram and Twitter. So everyone starts telling him his shit, and he's just gonna post stuff on social media. He's gonna post stuff on Instagram, and he's just gonna blast people, and he's gonna tell Drake to release more mixtapes, and then Drake's gonna involve Lil Wayne, and all of a sudden he's like this popular figure over social medias and millennials, and all the family now is just lauding him to be this amazing figure. And obviously he just doesn't know anything. He's just really good at Twitter. So he starts getting involved more with the family, and now the family starts giving him drugs and meth and Molly, and he's just so hooked up on Molly and meth that he's just gets so messed up that he destroys everything else. Like, he just destroys the Twitter account. He starts selling a bunch of crap. Like, he starts posting a bunch of dumb selfies with the family while they're doing like hits, mafia hits, or he's just like sitting and vacationing while the rest of the family are fighting this mob war, and he's just taking pictures of himself in Portland, or just going to Seattle and finding his love, his hipster love. We'll call her like Natalia, sure. So he's gonna find Natalia and then come back, and then he's gonna be like, "Oh, look at this cool little restaurant I found, and it's found this microbrewery in Portland. You know what we should do? We should set up a microbrewery here." And everyone else is just doing mafia hits, and they don't care about him. But obviously, because he's so important for the family, they have to kind of listen to what he's saying at the same time. So he's just kind of this annoying figure inside the family. But, because no one's listening to him, he's going to start telling everyone off. And then everyone gets pissed off at him, and he just leaves. He gets branded out. He starts doing a bunch of Molly. He starts doing a bunch of meth. And he starts doing a bunch of cocaine. He gets so fucked up. And this will be the prequel to This Is the End. Boom. Boom. And this movie's going to be called Nikki and Natalia's Infinite Hit List. Boom. Great movie. Release it.
All right. That was a very interesting pitch. Didn't really think about doing a Forrest Gump aspect, but...
Sounds interesting.
Yeah.
So I definitely like what he had an idea there. Zach, you want to go ahead with your movie pitch?
Sure. I didn't write anything down yet. I'm just totally doing this off the top of my head. So let's see what we come up with. Alright, so my ideal for this movie is we have Michael Cera. He is an undercover cop. The police have decided that it would be best to send him to prison. That way he can befriend the leader of the mafia's son. That way that can help buy in trust and get his way closer to the top. That way he can see all the doings in the background. Well, after he gets out of prison, he meets up with the father of his little prison buddy and basically tells him, thank you for looking out for my son. And at this point, Michael Cera has bulked up. Because he's a little scrawny guy, he's not going to be able to help anyone in prison. But he's gone to the gym. He has muscles now, which would be hilarious to see. Just saying. I feel other people would also think that. But anyways, the leader of the mafia, let's call them the Calzone family. They like pizza.
They love it.
So Luigi Calzone, the leader of the mafia family, tells them, thank you for protecting my boy. I'm now going to give you a job within the family. So Michael Cera accepts this position because he is undercover. Well, Michael Cera doesn't expect that his prison buddy, Mario Calzone, has a sister. Maria Calzone.
Maria.
Now, he gets pretty close with Maria. Actually, he falls in love with Maria. She is played by Selena Gomez, because I can't think of anyone else that would be close enough to Michael Cera's age or his looks, because Michael Cera looks like a 12-year-old. So I think those are pretty compatible. So they fall in love, which he doesn't expect. So he's now put in a dilemma. Do I keep with this fake identity? Do I stay with the mafia? Do I keep committing crimes? Do I rise to power, maybe take over the group one day? Which he never will, because it's, family patriarch, but his kids might become the leaders if he can kill Mario Calzone. So he says screw it. He turns them all in. He has countless piles of evidence against them, video recordings, tape recordings, that puts them all away. But Maria is heartbroken. She will not have anything to do with him. So Michael Cera goes home later that night, really upset. And guess who's waiting for him? It is the Calzone's number 1 lieutenant, Linguini.
You take it right at three.
Linguini is waiting for him in the shadows. All you see is the light turns on in the distance and a flash of light. Michael Cera is dead. So that is my movie pitch.
Okay. So what was the title of your movie?
The title of this movie is called The Rat.
The Rat.
Because he rats them out.
I like that.
So on the title, it's going to say Michael Cera is the Rat.
Okay, I like that. A little Fast and the Furious little spin on there.
Also, The Raid 2.
Right, a little mashup there. Sounds
But
pretty interesting.
you all have probably never seen The Raid, so you're probably not going to get that.
Yeah. If you haven't, you need to check that movie out. Okay, so my movie pitch here, the title is called The Dishonored. And the tagline is Till Death Do Us Part. Kind of went with like a modern day Romeo and Juliet mob type movie. Basically, Michael Cera falls in love with Mila Kunis, who's family with another rival mafia family. So I have Mila Kunis' brother is James Franco, who's real crazy and does a lot of cocaine drugs. He's pretty dangerous. And lots of people get killed because of him. And
Basically, he's playing himself.
Pretty much. So if you see what you see James Franco on the streets, just imagine that's how he is in the movie. Just crazy.
That would explain why he does all these different jobs.
I think so too, and he's got a lot of hyperness to him. So I'm thinking he's watching too much Scarface. So
Miles of cocaine.
I have the leader of Michael Cera's mafia family is Kevin Spacey. I figured he'd be like sort of like a Godfather. So I thought he would be a really great actor to play some kind of big leader of a mafia family. I also have that Michael and Mila in it. When they fall in love, it causes chaos in the family where, you know, it's betrayal, disloyalty. You don't go and, you know, get in relationships with the rival family that disrespects us. They kill our family members. You know, we don't do that. It's big problems. So at the end, I have the two families kind of going at it, shooting each other up. Chaos breaks loose. And Mila Kunis gets killed accidentally by the two leaders of the families, to where Michael Cera kind of goes into, you know, a maniac and just starts shooting up everybody, including his own mafia leader, Kevin Spacey, and then the other leader on the other side of the family. So I thought going with sort of, like I said, with the Romeo and Juliet type take on this movie here. So that's my movie pitch.
Can call me Scarface, certain mountains of cocaine. You cockroaches wanna play rough? Okay, I'm reloaded. This is the tale of Tony Montana. Cubano flame with Miami love. Race and white, a woman's polluted. This whole town just waiting to get
Sorry, I just had to play that because he's talking about Scarface, so
It was a great moment.
he's never heard it.
Yeah, excuse the language on there, but
We're sorry. We might bleep that out.
it was pretty hilarious. I think we'll keep it.
So if I decide, I might go back and just go beep.
Yeah, we might beep it out, some of the cuss words. Okay, well, that's our movie pitches there. last one to do their movie pitch is Robbie.
And we apologize. He has a little bit of poor quality with this one. He's recorded on his phone, and for some reason his phone doesn't really have that great of quality with the recordings.
So we're hopefully going to improve it this week. He's actually going to use his wife's phone that is a Galaxy S5 that's like mine. So hopefully his quality sounds just like mine when I send my recordings to Zach to put down on the iTunes on the podcast. So hopefully it sounds good.
And this is Robbie.
Alright, this is Robbie, and this is my movie pitch of the week. It's Michael Cera in a mob film. Let's see how this one turns out. Here we go.
Hey, it's trouble. We Italians, we got our families and we got the church. The Irish have the homeland. The Jews their tradition.
This Friday, come see the film that is captivating audiences everywhere. Winner of Sundance Film Festival. Michael Cera's dramatic turn as mob boss Frankie Cobalt. When I wake up in the morning, I don't want to see your face. Next time I wake up and see your face, it will be the last time you see my face. You understand? From best-selling author Nicholas Bryan comes this chilling crime story about two brothers. One who is an officer of the law, and the other is the leader of a notorious Boston mob gang. All my life, I've seen Frankie take and take and take, and now he's taken from this town, well, no more. No more. Michael Cera, Dave Franco, Jennifer Lawrence, Bruce Willis, Mark Wahlberg, Donnie Wahlberg, with Alan Rickman and Joe Pesci. Around the town. See what goes around doesn't always come back around. Everywhere, November 12th.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that was Mr. Robbie, or as I like to call him, that was Roberto with his movie pitch. So next up, we have Brian with his quote of the week. Each quote of the week is a clue to what the Cinema Showdown will be next week. It will give you an idea of what one of the movies will be. So here is Brian with the quote of the week.
Okay, so thank you, Zach. The movie quote. The movie quote of this week. Again, it's going to be really hard for anyone to figure this out.
It's not in English.
Yeah, it's in subtitles and stuff, so you'd really have to know this movie.
So we're giving you a clue right now. This movie is a foreign film.
But a very great one, I'm telling you. I know there might be people out there that might be like, that's a done deal for me. But no, this movie here is one to definitely watch. So when we reveal it and stuff, if you haven't seen it, I highly, 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 highly recommend you to check out this movies. So here it is. The movie quote is, "Only a fool argues for the pride of a dead man." Which, if you say it in...
So I'm going to read it with an accent.
Go ahead.
To help you try to figure out where this comes from. Only a fool argues for the pride of a dead man.
We hope we didn't offend anybody, but we thought that would be hilarious. Sorry. Well, that is the movie quote, so if you know it, post it on Twitter, Facebook, or on our iPod, iTunes. Let us know exactly if you know that movie or not.
All right, so this has been Zach.
And Brian.
And also Robbie, who's at a different house.
Sleeping.
Within the same city. And also we'd like to thank our buddies, our friends from Your Team Sucks, a hockey podcast, and also our good friends at Popsination Network.
So check them out. They got an awesome podcast, so listen to them. They sound great, hilarious, love what they do. Shout out.
Also, follow us at Twitter, at BZ Cinema Addicts. Again, there's no R. We made all this up before we had the R. The R's not even here right now.
Actually, we did it on purpose. We just tell Robbie that lie.
It's true. We like to mess with his head, see what happens. Shake the cage. Also, follow us, or not follow us, like us on Facebook at BZ Cinema Addicts. Again, there's no R.
Bummer.
Yeah. It's so sad. I wish I could go back in time. So, also, check out our other podcast. We still have not came up with a title of it yet, but the working title right now is The Movie Update. You got any good ideas?
No, I actually didn't. I was thinking something like that, the movie highlights or, movie news / listening to us. I don't know.
So, as of right now, it's called The Movie Update. And this is what is missing from this podcast, essentially. This podcast is going to be talking about movie news, box office results, trailers, and also is going to include our reviews of the movies we have watched this week. I've watched several, and we all know Robbie has probably watched like 10, so...
Can't wait to hear them.
So we will see you guys next week, and next week we are going to make an offer we can't refuse. I said it again wrong. What's wrong with me? Oh my god. All right, so let's send this out. This is a tale of Tony Montana